Hey, and thank you for checking us out here at the Fantasy Football Profits. Today we're going to talk about our sleepers for the 2018 season. We're going to do another video on this later in the year, so we'll get some more guys covered. But basically, here are our first 9. We're each just going to talk about 3. Before we get into that, we got a few things to cover. First is we have a contest running for a free hat. We're really excited about that one. All you have to do is be subscribed and leave something in the comments below that says, I want to win the free hat or something like that, so we know to put you in the contest. And the other thing is that we're not going to give that away until we hit 1,000 subscribers, which should actually be any day now. We're about 10 away, so we're really excited for that. But anyways, that's the contest. Another thing is look in the description down below. We'll have links to our Twitter, our website, and our Patreon. You can go to our Twitter to get updated articles that will be posted on there every day or so. You can go to our website to see our rankings, and also another place where we also keep our videos and other things like that, and connects all of our different sites. And then finally is our Patreon. If you want to check us out there on our Patreon, and you can support us and help us financially, allow us to get other equipment and stuff. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, as far as our Patreon go, I think it's important. We want everybody to know that any money that we've had, we put right back into equipment. We got a new microphone, looking at our wider lens, website development. So we're not looking at making a ton of money. We want to put that in, offering you guys a better product. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all we're going to talk about before we get started now. We can just get right into it. But I guess first, Rob, what's a brief description of a sleeper?
Yeah, it's really tough to define what a sleeper is. How do you define that? There's different variant. I think there's sleepers, and then we call deep sleepers, and every person is different. The one thing I do want to say regarding sleepers, though, is that first of all, sleepers are vital for your fantasy success. Nobody has a perfect draft. Inevitably, you have to expect the fact that you're going to have a player that's going to underperform. It's just going to happen. Or a player that's going to get hurt. Or you're going to need bye-week replacements regardless. It's important to understand the sleepers. It can help you develop a deep bench too, not only for injuries and bye weeks, but what about trade bait? There's been times where I've built up a big bench, and then I'll use that to trade for maybe an upgrade at another position. So sleepers are really important. And it's not just about knowing who the sleepers are, but it's also about understanding when you take them. And I think that's important to understand. How far do I let this slip? When can I get them? And so you need to understand who your sleepers are, and then you also need to understand average draft position so that I can know there's a time for me to take that guy. I had a couple of sleepers I was huge on, and I let fall too far in the draft and miss out, and sure enough, they had a huge. So know your sleepers, know when you should take them, understand they're vital in having fantasy success.
All right, thank you. Now we'll just get into our first guy. And I guess that's you, Rob. Sorry, you got to go twice in a row a little bit there. But
so my first sleeper is Ricky Seals-Jones. I like this guy. He's a second-year tight end for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, if you look at his average draft position, right, we talked about how important that is in evaluating his sleepers. He's not even listed in the top 25 for tight ends. So this guy's not even on the radar. He's not even registering at this point, so you can get him very late. 2 days ago, the Cardinals coaches came out publicly and said they finally found their pass-catching tight end that they've needed for quite a while. He's a converted college wide receiver, and I like that because being a converted college wide receiver means this guy got, in terms of hands, speed, and route running, everything he needs to be effective in the NFL in terms of putting up good numbers. Now, last year he started the season on the practice squad, and he was promoted to the regular season late in September. Now, his first 2 games he played on special teams. In his 3rd game, he had 1 snap on offense. After that, he was inactive for the next 4 games, but he became part of the offense the rest of the year. The last 7 games of the season, he had 12 catches for 201 yards and 3 TDs. Now, 4 of his 12 receptions were over 20 yards. He had the ability to get down the field and get open. It goes back to him being a wide receiver. He's got decent speed. Now, if you look at the production that he had last year, which isn't amazing, yet the production he had was better than any other Cardinals tight end for the entire season. Now, he finished the year, like I said, with 12 catches, 201 yards, and 3 TDs. But if you take those statistics and you project those out over 16 games, it turns out to be 27 catches, 459 yards, and 7 TDs. Those are actually really good rookie numbers. If you study it, we have a video out there. It was kind of the post-NFL draft, and we discussed rookie tight ends. Typically, they don't put up good numbers, so those are decent numbers. In fact, those numbers project over 16 games. We're better than a lot of Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame tight ends of rookie years. Those numbers were better than tight ends like David Njoku and O.J. Howard, who were both first-round picks, so he did very well there. I think what else bodes well for him and why I like this guy is he's got Sam Bradford as quarterback. And if you know anything about Sam Bradford, he had propensity to throw high percentage throws. Let's use his tight end a lot. In fact, back in 2016, when Sam set the completion record, it was also Kyle Rudolph's best season. That year, Kyle Rudolph, his tight end, he ended up finishing the career best 83 catches and 840 yards. That's 30 catches more than his previous best and 345 yards more. Ricky had a 2-game stretch last year where he showed what he's capable of. In 2 games, he had back-to-back games where he had 3 catches, 54 yards, and 2 TDs. The next week, he had 4 catches, 72 yards, and a TD. So we see that this guy's got the ability to be very effective. Now, some people would say, well, Sam Bradford may not win that job. Maybe Josh Rosen gets it. I think if that's the case, I think it's going to be fine either way because rookie quarterbacks tend to play close to the vest. Usually, offensive coordinators will play conservative play calling for the rookie quarterback and use their tight ends a lot. So I think either way, whether it's Sam Bradford or Josh Rosen, I think you're going to be okay there. When I look at Ricky Seals-Jones, here's what I think in terms of tight ends. If I can't get one of the top 5 tight ends, I'd rather take my chances and roll out dice on a guy like him who's got a very high ceiling versus maybe taking a guy like Clay, tight end for Buffalo, who is really average at best, who's got maybe a safer floor but very low ceiling. So he's a guy that, once again, I would keep your eye on. I think this guy's got huge potential to have a breakout year. My sleeper pick there is Ricky Seals-Jones.
I was definitely high on Seals-Jones last year. I had him in my league. Actually, both leagues that I was high on him, I had him during those 2-game stretch where he had the touchdowns, and everybody was like, why did you pick this guy up? Who is this guy? He just kind of came out of nowhere. He faded off again. I don't know if part of that was the fact that Blaine Gabbert was throwing him the ball or what it was, but I know Arizona definitely looking to get him the ball this year, and he should have a great year.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about that. I think he's a good guy. My only thing is I definitely have to agree with the idea of going with kind of the deep sleeper tight end. I mean, outside of Travis Kelce or even maybe Rob Gronkowski, who do you trust? Who do you really like at tight end? No one. If you don't get one of those 2 guys, you might as well take a chance on somebody, really. Yeah. So I really like that pick.
And tight end is so deep, and I honestly, like you said, he's just not even in the top 25. He's going to come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of people this year.
All right, so now your first pick.
My first pick this year is going to be Corey Davis. Now, I've been on Corey Davis pretty high myself. Also last year, both my leagues that I had him in, he kind of disappointed. He wasn't really there. He had the hamstring injury, then subsequent ankle injury. They had high hopes for him. He was a number 5 draft pick overall at Tennessee. But Tennessee was more of a pound the ball type of team, and now this new offensive coordinator, the newer class of coaches, it's not John Fox coming in where they're just gonna go old school. It's a new guy. He's coming over from St. Louis. We talked about this before. He's gonna have some big plays. He's gonna have Marcus Mariota getting out, doing some things. If you look at Mariota, there's kind of a recency bias where people are thinking he's kind of a junk quarterback, but realistically, last year he might have had more interceptions than touchdowns, but the year before, you look at it, he had 26 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Now, Corey Davis moved into the number 1 role. He's a speedster. He's a good guy. Got great hands. Last year, like I said, he was hobbled by the injuries, but still finished the season with decent couple games there, especially in the playoffs. He seemed to make a connection with Mark Mariota. 2 games in the playoffs, he had 15 targets, 9 catches for 92 and 2 touchdowns. Realistically, as a whole, if you look at the season, it wasn't a great season. But once he hit towards the end there and started really connecting with Mariota, 2 of them just seemed to connect. He ended his college career having the reception yards record for the NCAA. Out of Western Michigan, and they put a lot of stock into him for a reason. High draft pick, first round pick, number 5 overall. I think Corey Davis is going to be the guy in Tennessee, and if you just look at the last couple of years, they haven't really had a great passing game, but with this new offense, I think things could be looking up for Corey Davis.
Yeah, I like that. One thing that I really like is that they just brought in Dion Lewis, and they're finally moving on from DeMarco Murray. Hopefully with Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis, those running backs will be able to do something on the ground game and catching out of the backfield to keep that offense going. I think one of the things that really hurt that offense last year was, it sounds dumb, but the fact that they struggled meant they struggled more. When the running game struggles, then receivers struggle, and everything kind of falls apart really quickly.
Yeah, there's a domino effect there. A lack of sustained drive doesn't just hurt the running backs. There's wide receivers in the entire offense. So,
yeah, exactly. And I like the additions that they've made. So I think it could be a much improved year for him. I completely agree with you, Ryan.
Yeah, one of the things that I look at when I look at my sleepers is these aren't going to be my guys that I'm drafting as a wide receiver 1 or my starting quarterback. I might stash him on the bench, maybe wait a couple weeks, see what really happens, and then when he explodes, at least I'm going to be the one that has him versus losing out to somebody else on the waiver wire.
Yeah. What about you, Rob? No comment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say. I like Corey Davis. He's a big physical receiver drafted in the first round. He actually looked good in game one until he got hurt. I think if I have any concerns for him, it's not necessarily him. I think he's very talented. My only concern is Marcus Mariota. Marcus has been in your league 3 years. First 2 years he looked pretty good. Last year he took a major step back. That could get a lot of other factors. I think if Marcus has a good year, I think Corey Davis is due for a really solid season.
Yeah, and that just lends to the idea, like I said earlier, with the new coordinator. I think they're going to be looking for things to do with Mariota because they know his talent, they know his skills, and if they can really focus on his skill set, they can expand the whole offense, not just the quarterback role.
All right. Okay, so my first guy is Randell Cobb, receiver for the Green Bay Packers. He's a guy I'm really, really excited about this year, and I'm just really shocked to see where he's being taken in the draft. So right now his ADP, or his average draft position, is 119 overall and 47th among wide receivers.
That's way too low.
That's just shockingly too low, and we're going to talk a bit about it. Now, I somewhat understand people who haven't sat down and really looked at Randell Cobb's career and looked at the Green Bay Packers receiving situation and everything. I can understand. He's had a really on and off career, and I totally get why he makes some people nervous. His first year, he comes out and he really doesn't do anything. He gets like 200, 300 yards receiving. But then also in his second year, he comes out, he gets 954 yards, 8 touchdowns, 8 catches, and people are like, wow, he's the man, you know, he's going to be so great. And then all of a sudden he gets injured in his third year. His fourth year, he gets 126 targets, over 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns, and people are like, he's great. And then year 5, he steps back a little bit. He gets 129 targets, 829 yards, 6 touchdowns. People are like, okay, maybe he's not that great. He's just okay. And then last year in year 6, he was injured much of the season again, and he really burned some people. And then last year, he had another bad year because Aaron Rodgers was gone, and everyone's like, okay, well, you know, he had a couple of good years, but clearly it's not. Clearly, he's not going to be that good of a receiver. But I think this is going to be his breakout season. I think he's going to get back to his form as before, where he had 12 touchdowns. I think it's going to be awesome. So first thing, I want to talk about when he is healthy and when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, because he's missed so many seasons where either Rodgers was hurt or he was hurt. So his averages when him and Rodgers are healthy, he gets 83.3 catches on 119.6 targets, 1,000 yards, and 8.6 touchdowns this season. That's pretty stinking good. Then you look at, he finally moves up on the depth chart this year because Jordy Nelson is gone. For the first time in his career, he goes from being the number 3 guy to the number 2 guy. So imagine averaging 1,000 yards and 8.6 touchdowns a season as the number 3 guy in the depth chart. Now you move up to the number 2 guy in the depth chart. I think that offers a lot more for him. Now, what does the average number 2 wide receiver for Green Bay get every season? Well, that there averages 115 targets, 72 catches, 1,058 yards, and 10.6 touchdowns a season. So you can see that there's a lot of I guess there's a big role, big shoes for him to fill there, a lot for him to move into, and yet we've seen from his seasons when he's healthy that he can clearly fill that role. Those numbers that the number 2 Green Bay receiver averages are actually a lot better than people would think. Last year, only 3 people had 10 or more receiving touchdowns, and one of them was actually a tight end. And of those 3, it was Jimmy Graham. Of those 3, only one had 10 or more touchdowns and over 1,000 yards, and that was DeAndre Hopkins, who happened to be the number 1 fantasy scoring receiver last year. So when you look at it, I think it's going to be a huge year for Randell Cobb. He's got a big role to come in and fill. Aaron Rodgers throws the ball more than most quarterbacks. He's probably, I would call him the best quarterback in the NFL and the team that needs him to be week in, week out. No, I'm not saying that he's going to be the number 1 fantasy scoring receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be top 5 or even top 10. But 47th, he's going to be far better than 47th receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 85, 90 catches, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And he's a guy that you can get as a 47th receiver, 119th guy off the board. I think that's huge.
Yeah, don't have a whole lot to say about that because I agree with your breakdown. I think he's in a perfect position to be successful. You're right, he plays for a great offense, loves to throw the ball. I mean, everything points to this guy, barring an injury, having a huge year. So I would agree with your entire breakdown. I think that he's way too low as far as his draft position.
Yeah, that's the thing. All you have to do is ignore the seasons, because he's had some off seasons. Ignore those seasons where he struggled with injury or Rodgers has struggled with injury. That really kind of blurs the numbers and makes it kind of hard to see.
I really think Green Bay is one of those offenses. There are very few in the NFL, but Green Bay is definitely one of them where you could easily see 2 wide receivers being both top 20 value in a fantasy team.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with that more. I would not be at all surprised if he was easily in top 20 fantasy receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into my next guy, we're going to continue with the Green Bay Packers. And my next sleeper is Aaron Jones. Now his average draft position, he's a 36 quarterback that's being taken off the board and 89th overall. So if you take a look at the concern right now, a lot of people want to understand is who's going to be the guy there. You got Ty Montgomery, Jamal Williams. Well, if you take a look at last year, I believe that Jones was by far the better pure running back. If you look at the other two guys, their yards per carry sat at 3.6 and 3.8, but Jones had a healthy and robust 5.5 yards per carry and he ran the ball. Now, he saw limited starts last year, but in the starts that he had in the 4 games, he really thrived as a starter. 2 games, he had 19 carries, 125 yards. In another game, he had 17 carries, 131 yards, and he had 3 TDs during those 4 games. So to me, he's a major sleeper. During the same 4-game stretch where he was a starter there, he had 15.5 carries per game. Now, some people are concerned about the Packers' running game will be effective. They struggled down the stretch last year, but a lot of that to me is Aaron Rodgers being out. Defenses were able to load the box and focus on shutting down the ball. They understood with Aaron Rodgers gone that the Packers were going to try to run the ball, so they focused on that. Now with Aaron Rodgers back, that's going to take pressure off the running game. They should open up a lot of running lanes. Now, when it's all said and done, kind of here's how I see it playing itself out. I think he's going to win the starting job. I think he'll be the starting back there. I think Ty Montgomery is going to be used more in the passing with the departure of Jordy Nelson. Also, if you take a look at the 3 backs, he's by far the biggest of the 3 backs. Now, when I say that he's a few less pounds, actually he's only 5'9", so he's built a lot more sturdier. He's stockier. He's built a lot more like a Marshawn Lynch, so I think he's a better fit there. I think he can handle that carries more than maybe a Ty Montgomery. Now, I want you to consider this comparison last year statistically. Aaron Jones had 81 carries, 448 yards, and 4 TDs. Jamal Williams had 153 carries, basically twice as many carries, 556 yards, and 4 TDs. So Aaron Jones does basically the same amount of damage with half as many carries. Now, even if you look at Jamal Williams, I know a lot of people are big, they think he's going to be the guy this year. But Jamal Williams only had 1 game last year where his yards per carry were over 4. He's most effective in the passing when really he struggled to run the ball. And a lot of people forget that was actually Aaron Jones that actually cost Jamal Williams his spot and bumped him down the depth chart. Right. The only reason why Williams got the job back is because Jones got injured. And so I think you have to take a look at that right now. Another concern that we have, and a lot of Packer fans out there, a lot of feedback. Last year was huge. We said be careful, stay away from Ty Montgomery. We don't think he's durable enough. We don't think he can handle those carries. A lot of people disagreed, but we were right. So listen to me. Aaron Jones is my sleeper. I'm going to watch his progress slowly this year. We'll look at the preseason, see how it does. But right now, I'm huge on this guy.
Yeah, exactly. I especially agree with what you said about Ty Montgomery. To be honest, they don't really have a number 3 wideout there. And the way he performed at running back, I wouldn't be surprised if they just switched him to wideout at some point in the season. But yeah, that's just the big thing. He just didn't perform, and he wasn't big enough. Neither of those guys were. I completely agree with Aaron Jones. I think that's going to be his season.
As far as wideouts go in Green Bay, I think they drafted 1 or 2 wideouts towards the end of the draft. It's going to be a competition, though. They still have Geronimo Allison, but for the most part, Aaron Rodgers has a better connection with Ty Montgomery, and they swing him out into that receiver role a lot more. So I don't think he's going to play much of a running back, and I do believe that Aaron Jones easily has that job by the time the season starts.
Yeah. All right, now Ryan, you're for your second guy, Marquise Goodwin.
My second guy, Marquise Goodwin. Yeah, I definitely wanted to put Marquise Goodwin in our boom video. Marquise Goodwin, he's a smaller guy, 5'9", 179, track star in college. He's speedy. He get out there, and he really, in his career, hasn't had that chance to be a number 1 wide receiver until last season when Pierre Garçon got hurt. Pierre Garçon went down. Marquise Goodwin stepped into that role. Jimmy Garoppolo came over from the Patriots. He ended the season with 56 catches, 962 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, of those 3 touchdowns, if you really look at it, the 49ers settled for field goals a lot last year. They ended some games they'd have 3, 4, 5 field goals, no touchdowns on the board. If you take and just change 2 of those field goals into a touchdown, Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to be throwing it, and it could go to Marquise Goodwin. He, over the course of his career, his first 4 seasons in Buffalo, he had less receptions, less yards, and the same amount of touchdowns as he had in 1 season last year in San Francisco. with a Kyle Shanahan being the head coach there and the type of offenses he likes to run, they're definitely going to be slinging the ball all over the field. They got a great quarterback with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just see Marquise Goodwin having an amazing season. Pierre Garçon is coming back, but he is getting older. By the time the season starts, he's going to be 32 years old. He might not be the same Pierre Garçon. It feels like he's just been around forever. I mean, he played with Peyton Manning on the Colts. So he's getting up there, and the coaching staff talks very highly of Marquise Goodwin. They went out and got him last year in free agency for a reason. He's in a contract year this year, so he's playing for the money. And I think that it's just his time to break out. He's going to be one of those guys, too, that he might not be my 1 or 2 wide receiver, but I'll stash him on my bench. I'll pop him in my wide receiver 3 role every once in a while, and he's going to give me some consistent numbers. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo and Marquise Goodwin actually are spending a lot of time, because they can't be on the facility, they're doing off the field. They're finding fields throughout the Bay Area where they can go out and learn the routes and make the connections. So I think Goodwin and Garoppolo is going to be a connection to have this year.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest thing that really supports that he's going to have a good season is Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw what he could do last year. He's clearly a very talented, very good, very smart quarterback. Now you get Kyle Shanahan as the head coach there, who's probably going to be very dedicated to getting that offense going, which in the past couple of years had really struggled, and before Garoppolo got in was really, really struggling. And then you just combine the fact that who does Garoppolo really have to throw to? Marquise Goodwin is the #1 guy, so I definitely agree with you. I don't know if he's absolutely the most talented receiver that you could draft, but he's definitely talented enough. He's the #1 guy, and I think just sheer bulk, I think he's going to get some good stats.
And one other thing that I'd like to add to that too, with the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, they only gave him the schemes for the team that they were playing against last year. He didn't get the full offensive playbook until the end of the season. So with all the time from the end of the season until now to be able to study the full offense versus just the schemes they wanted to run against specific teams, he's going to be really dangerous. And I actually have him in my top 7 quarterbacks here too.
Yeah, so my take on Marquise Goodwin, he's not a guy that I would, most of my leagues I'm in, we have to start 3 wideouts. I would definitely not be comfortable trusting him as my first, second, or third, but he's definitely a guy that I would love to have on my bench as a wide receiver 4 that I could plug in there or see how he progresses. He definitely showed a lot last year. I think surprised a lot of people. They felt like they came out of nowhere because he'd been in the league a few years, so how do we get to really, who's the real Marquise Goodwin at this point? Well, I think the one thing that he was handcuffed by playing for a very bad Buffalo Bills offense. So I think we saw last year could be an indication that this guy's got the ability to put up some good numbers. Now he's got a good team, a good quarterback around him. So he's definitely a guy throwing your bench. He definitely looked good down the stretch. So
he gets a really high yards per catch too. If you take out his entire career, he's got 105 receptions for over 1,700 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, that's one great season if you were looking at it that way. He gets about close to 17 yards per catch, so he's going to be stretching the field.
Yeah. All right, so my second guy is quarterback Jameis Winston. Now, I really like this pick because I don't like to worry about my quarterbacks. I like to take them really, really late. In fact, if I can, a quarterback is my last pick in the draft. And so what I always try to do at the beginning of every season is who is going to be there at the end of the draft that I can take after everyone else is gone and is going to have a good year. And I think this year it's going to be Jameis Winston. We'll see if his ADP, if he moves up his average draft position. He probably definitely should. Hopefully he won't, and then we'll be able to get him late. So right now his ADP is 19th at that position, which means if you're a 12-person league, even if people draft multiple quarterbacks, he's probably not going to go to late, the last 2 or 3 rounds of the draft. So that's something I'm really excited about, but I think he's going to far outperform that. The first reason is that last year they had the 32nd ranked overall defense in the NFL. That's brutal, and I absolutely love that because combine that with the fact that they don't really have a running game, guess who's going to be throwing the ball at? Jameis Winston. So that's something that I'm really excited about, just the sheer fact that he's going to be throwing the ball more than most quarterbacks. So that's one thing that I really like about him. The other one is that I want to compare his pace average last year to what the 19th best quarterback in the NFL fantasy-wise did last year. So last year the 19th fantasy scoring quarterback was Josh McCown. He had 267 completions on 397 attempts. only threw 2,926 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's a pretty brutal stat line. And yet that's basically what we're expecting from Jameis Winston when we say we're taking him 19th overall. And yet, he played just 11 games last year. If you look it up online, it's going to say he played 13, but he got injured early in 2 games, so it's basically just 11. If you take those 11 games, his stats from those 11 games, and you take that pace and put it to a 16-game season, he would have had 396 completions, 609 attempts, 4,910 yards, and 28 touchdowns, plus 2 rushing. So he would have hit a 30-touchdown mark and almost 5,000 yards. Now, I'm not saying he's going to pass for 5,000 yards. I'm not saying he's going to get 30 touchdowns. I think he'll come a little bit shy of both of those marks. However, he is far and away above a 19th overall quarterback.
Definitely, I agree with that. If you look at Jameis Winston, too, he is a mobile quarterback. He's still young. He's only a year older than the number 1 pick in the draft this year. Name's escaping me. Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
He's 24. He still has the same weapons he had last year. With one more year of being able to build that connection with those guys, you have Mike Evans on one side. You still have Deshaun Jackson, O.J. Howard's there, Cameron Brate, and then they did add a running back, and it's a pass-catching running back in Ronald Jones Jr. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and that just lends more options for Jameis Winston to be able to boost up in the rankings.
Yeah, I like Jameis Winston. I'm a strong proponent of not taking a quarterback early and waiting. He's a guy that I think you can take, the classic guy that you can let fall take later on. Garbage time stats are huge. If you look at Blake Bortles 3 years ago, he had 32 touchdown passes. Had a huge year because back then Jacksonville's defense was brutal. Yep. They're always playing from behind. And so, I'd be happy to go with a guy like him. I think he's going to have a good year. I think that's a great sleeper pick.
Yeah, and one guy that might be shocked there too is Chris Godwin or Goodwin? Goodwin?
Yeah.
Their 3rd wide receiver. He was supposed to be pretty good last year, kind of under the radar. And if Deshaun Jackson or Mike Evans happens to go down, that could be a guy that Winston looks to quite a bit. So
yeah, he can definitely analyze that number 3 guy there for sure. Hopefully neither of them will go down for Winston's sake.
Right. But, right.
All right, now you're up for Allen Hurns.
My final sleeper here is going to be Allen Hurns. So he plays for Dallas Cowboys now. He was brought in as a free agent. His average draft position, he's the 46th wide receiver taken, 115th overall. Right now, I like him a lot for a lot of reasons. But one, with Des Bryant gone, he's the Cowboys' number 1 wide receiver. It's not going to be Williams, Austin, Bailey. Trust me, it's not going to be either one of those guys. It could maybe be a rookie wide receiver like Gallup or Cedric Wilson, but those guys need to rise up. I think it's important to remember those rookie wideouts. If we're being honest, they need to show a lot to really move up depth charts. They weren't drafted too high and they weren't ranked too high. Let's take a look at Allen Hurns and what he does. Well, one, if you look at him, if you study him through the years, he plays very physical. He's a tough receiver. The concern he's had, he's been beat up a lot. He's had a hard time staying healthy. But if you look at the first 2 years, he actually did quite well. In the first 2 years, he had a combined 16 touchdowns. In his second year, he had 1,031 receiving yards in 15 games. And that's with a bad quarterback, Blake Bortles. At this point, I take Dak Prescott over Blake any day in terms of quarterback goes. He's got good size, which can help him win battles at 6'3". He's still young. He's only 25, and he's going to be the number 1 wideout for that offense. They brought him in. Basically, paid him a decent amount of money, and right after they brought him in, subsequently cut Des Bryant. They gave him a 2-year, $12 million deal. That's pretty good money. They didn't bring in and pay him $5 million a year to be their wide receiver 3 or 4, obviously, and so this bodes well. Now, when I take a look at the year that he's going to have, I don't see him having wide receiver 1 type numbers, statistically speaking, but he could easily become a very good wide receiver 2, 3 in fantasy terms. His average draft position means that, for example, in 12-team leagues, that require 3 starting wide receivers, means that teams are filling their starting requirements for wide receiver at 36 total wideouts, with an additional 9 more taken ahead of him in mock drafts. All of this for a guy that currently stands as the number 1 wideout for Dallas. So if all goes well and he stays healthy, he could easily steal and put up wide receiver 2 numbers. I like Allen Hurns to be the number 1 wideout there for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The only concern that, we would have with him is that he's going to be facing number 1 cornerback. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, well, now he goes and he upgrades at quarterback and he's the number 1 guy. I think sometimes we get concerns like, oh, he's facing the number 1 corner. That's going to be really tough and he's going to struggle. But that can also be good. It means he's the number 1 guy. It means the quarterback's going to want to throw to him. It's going to lean on him a lot. So I think it's going to be good.
It's hard sometimes, like you said, cornerback can cause issues when we're facing the number one guy, but he's a volume play.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get a lot of targets being the number one guy there, so I think I'll take that trade off.
Especially in a PPR league.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to say about Hurns.
All right.
My fun guy?
Yeah.
We're up to me. My fun guy is going to be Trey Burton. Trey Burton, tight end, the Chicago Bears. I mean, if you look at Trey Burton over the course of his career, you can't say everything's been great, but look at the time when he's had his opportunity. Last year, he was able to start one game behind a great tight end like Zach Ertz for most of the season. The one game where Zach Ertz went down and was injured, Trey Burton came out, had 5 catches for 71 yards, and I believe it was 2 touchdowns. I don't recall exactly, but it was either 1 or 2 touchdowns. But 5 catches for 71 in his one start is actually really good numbers for a tight end. Now you look at Chicago with Matt Nagy going to Chicago. Matt Nagy's coming from Kansas City. And in Kansas City, what do you think of for tight end? Travis Kelce. He's a big athletic tight end. And in a Matt Nagy offense, he likes big athletic tight ends. Trey Burton, 6'3", 235 pounds. He is going to be the parallel Travis Kelce in the Chicago Bears offense. Now, they paid the guy 4 years, $32 million. That's quite a large sum for a tight end. They really like this guy. He's going to be getting the ball quite a bit, and he's big, athletic, and I think Trey Burton is kind of flying under the radar right now as far as the tight ends go. He's not even being drafted typically in the top 12 for tight ends. So this is a guy you can pick up on the cheap and easily throw in there as your starter, and he should do big things for you.
Yeah, for me, Trey Burton, we'll see that. That's a huge contract, obviously, for a guy that's not very proven. It's a lot of money to throw at anybody, much less a tight end like him. So that bodes really well for him. The only concern I have for him, and it goes back to a lot of the guys I've said previously, and that's really playing the development of the quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. Mitch struggled at times last year. There could be a lot of reasons for that. The offensive coordinator. We see the huge jump that Jared Goff with the second year. Mm-hmm. We could see that with Mitch Trubisky. So that, to me, that's the only concern is will Mitch continue to develop and really make that adjustment to the NFL?
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's really the only concern there is quarterback.
I mean, I feel like that Chicago offense, it does have the potential to be pretty explosive this year. You do look at like a second-year quarterback, but he's got Allen Robinson on one side. They just drafted Anthony Miller. They have Trey Burton. They still have Jordan Howard. Tyreek Cohen coming out of the backfield. There are a lot of weapons there for him. There's a lot of safety zones where he should be able to find somebody that's open. As long as he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, I think that the Bears offense could be pretty solid this year.
So get to your final guy. Before you get to him, Christian, I like this guy.
Yeah, Cameron Meredith. I'm excited. I think he's going to have a great year. So first, we'll talk about a little bit just his development. And Culchu is actually a quarterback. And he comes in the NFL and he converts to a wide receiver. In his first year for the Chicago Bears, he doesn't really do much. I think he gets like 150 or 170 receiving yards. But he's an undrafted free agent converting from quarterback to wide receiver, not to mention the fact that the Bears have Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. And so, they really didn't rush him into that lineup or do anything with him. But his second year, Marshall leaves and Jeffrey gets hurt. And Meredith stepped up and becomes the #1 wide receiver there in 2016. He gets 96 targets, 66 catches, 888 yards, and 4 touchdowns. As his first year, that's basically his rookie year, his first year coming out in the lineup and really playing. Those are really solid numbers. He does this despite facing the #1 cornerback, being the only weapon in that offense. And honestly, having a bad quarterback in Jake Cutler. I mean, it was bad. He was not really getting the ball very effectively to anyone. In 2017, he gets hurt and doesn't play a single snap, and we don't really know what he did last year. We really only have 1 year to see what Cameron Meredith had done. However, that was his first year really playing in that role, and he played it really well. Now, this offseason, he leaves Chicago and he upgrades. He goes to the Saints, and he gets a better quarterback in Drew Brees. A quarterback who, by the way, whose #2 wide receivers average over the last 4 years 107 targets, 922 yards, and 6.5 touchdowns, which sounds really good. Those are pretty good numbers for a #2 wide, a step up from what Meredith done his second season. But that's not to mention that those number 2 wideouts were Ted Ginn Jr. and Kenny Stills and a bunch of guys that Willie Snead and a bunch of guys who, to be honest, aren't as good as Cameron Meredith. I wouldn't be surprised if Cameron Meredith did more with those 107 targets. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 8 touchdowns and broke 1,000 yards. Here's a guy we just don't have a lot of game film on. We don't have a lot of stats on. We haven't seen much from him. But as the 48th wide receiver off the board at ADP is 48th, I think he's a guy you can take a shot on late, and I think he's going to be a good number 2 wideout or a really good number 3.
Actually, the last couple of years, Sean Payton has come out and said Drew Brees is going to start throwing the ball again. He was in the 600 to 650 attempt range for many seasons, and then last year, look, he dropped off significantly. I think in our last video, you said it was like 540 attempts or something like that. Peyton has come out and said, Brees is going to be throwing the ball again. He's going to get more touchdowns. He's going to get more targets to the number 1, number 2 receivers, and obviously the running backs coming out of the backfield. And they don't seem to use the tight end very much. Yeah, Benjamin Watson's back there. He has a connection with Brees, but those receivers are going to be the ones that are going to be getting the bulk share of those targets. And Meredith definitely is going to be one of the guys that benefits from that.
Yeah, like Cameron Meredith, 6'3". The year that you mentioned, he had 888 yards. He did only 14 games. He had 4 games a year of 100 yards. I think he's going to have a huge year. I love him as a sleeper pick. So here at the Fantasy Football Profits, thanks for joining us today. What we want you to do is like, subscribe, but at the bottom, let us know who your sleepers are. Thanks for joining us today. God bless and take care.